Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm DDO's community manager, Cordova, and I'll be with you for a while, hanging out. I'll be doing some questing later. This will be a fairly chill stream, but first, we're going to have a little bit of news where we talk about the free questing coupon. We talk about Update 59, currently set to arrive next week, and a little bit more as well. So, welcome. Hope you're having a good Friday. I don't know if you've got anything you want to ask me about or not, but let me, actually forgot to look up my bonus this week. What did I announce yesterday? What was it? It was a busy day yesterday. Okay, yeah, so 20% guild renown running through the 23rd. But more importantly is you have until midnight on Sunday through 11:59 p.m. Eastern on April 23rd in order to redeem the free questing coupon. So, if you have not yet done so, please consider it. This is going to get you a whole bunch of quests, and it's Dungeon Crawl, and you can redeem it through midnight Eastern on Sunday, April 23rd. It's going to grant all these adventure packs to you. So if you do have any friends you want to get in and what have you, please do that now. Also, we have a bunch of expansions for 99 points in the DDO store. That would be Masterminds of Sharn, Menace of the Underdark, Mr. Ravenloft, and Shadowfell Conspiracy. Many of the people already watching the show, this is old news. You've either already used it or you already had this stuff to begin with for the most part. But still, make sure you do redeem it through Sunday. And if you're hearing this broadcast, just double check quick. Hey, did I redeem that coupon code? If the answer is no, you've got until Sunday at midnight in order to do it. The other thing I wanted to do quick, and this is obviously very much a Word doc, an open office doc on top of it. But this is some release notes that are going to be getting ready for next Wednesday's release of Update 59. I just pulled them off a page so that there was no non-public information on it, really, and I thought I'd just real quick give you a sneak peek at what the current state of the Update 59 release notes are. So it's the Jeroam Legendary Edition, the 3 free quests, 4 quests, part of the Attack on Stormreach Adventure Pack. They're all going to be legendary, and you'll be able to pick that up in Lord's March Plaza. The performance work that was seen on Lamania, this is hopefully we'll know hopefully next Friday by this time whether it's true or not, but early indications are that this performance work is going to not solve lag, but make a pretty big difference in some key areas. We've had some very positive feedback on it, and we're hopeful that carries through to when we go live with it with Update 59 here. If it does, well, let's maybe give ourselves a pat on the back next Friday. Let's see if it makes a difference. But it will definitely at least make a difference in terms of the ways the game is communicating itself. And so it will have nothing but positive at the very least. And that'll be going live next week as well. Otherwise, you've probably already seen these release notes from Lamania. But we just have some general bug fixes going in, and we're fixing a sound issue, well, hopefully fixing a sound issue in 2 ways. Where do I have that? A crashing issue related to sounds, specifically that's the Isle of Dread stuff that's come up. But furthermore, we're updating the open AL32.dll for the game to 1.23.1. As part of our overall work to try to solve this crashing issue. Additionally, we're correcting an issue with EAX for 64-bit clients. That's kind of an environmental audio sound. So the firing arc tolerance for general missile weapons is going to be moving from 45 to 60 degrees. This is a detect range, essentially, to determine whether or not you're facing the target when you shoot your bow. It will help avoid dry fires when a player is circling a monster up close, specifically. The fast nightmare mount's going to be bound to account. That's cool. Some enhancement work, and then some Reaper difficulty work that was seen over on Lamania as well, where some of the higher skulls are going to have a little bit more caster damage mitigation, and the self-healing penalty in Reaper difficulty is actually going to be adjusted so that if you're out of combat, you'll be able to self-heal at the same penalty that just exists throughout Reaper, so whether in or out of combat. and a few other bits as well. These aren't the final release notes, but this is what we have so far, and we'll be wrapping up any final bits that got into the build and what have you early next week, and then hopefully going live with it next week as well. So I do just want to, I'm going to leave this up for a little bit while I talk, because I really do want to make sure that everyone gets that final opportunity to redeem this free questing coupon before I move in game and do some other things. No, the new forums do not have a reputation system. I think I could create some kind of title ladder that would be an equivalent to it, but I don't think I want to. I think reputation has been nothing but trouble, honestly, on the existing forums, even positive rep to some extent. And I'm not sure I want to go there. But let's go live with the forums. Perhaps it's a feature request we can bring in the future if there's enough interest. Yeah, if you're kiting mobs specifically, this talks about circling mobs because that's where that 40-foot, the wider range of detect is going to be more noticeable. But I think in general, if you're kiting and seeing dry firing, it will probably make an improvement there. But it really depends what you mean by kiting, because yeah, it's more for up close and personal where you cross over that line. Otherwise, you were generally within the range to begin with, a little bit farther away. So, all right. Well, I think that is basically the news I've got for today. So not a huge amount of news, but let me move on over to the game here and bring up my sound. And I just am doing some Isle of Dread questing here today. I've got a character on Wayfinder that's level 31. Why shouldn't they be level 32? So I'm just going to run a few quests here and hang out with people for the rest of the show, and we'll just go from there. So... I don't know that I've got a whole lot of rest of the news, so maybe that's just going to be a short news show, and we'll hang out. But you know, update 59 is coming real soon, so we'll be running update 59 stuff, hopefully next week. I would also mention actually that we are close. We're not there yet. I suppose I could mention this while it's early enough on, which is that I'm just trying to put my thoughts together. Sorry. Give me a second. We're getting close to being able to announce further detail about the next hardcore season. And it has got some particularly kind of interesting sort of thing to it this year that hopefully people will be able to discover organically here when we go live with it. But we're getting ready to announce the dates and what have you. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably not be next week, but maybe it'll be next weekish. We'll see. But we're getting close to it. So the next hardcore season is getting close enough that we're getting ready to provide a little bit of a teaser as to what it'll be about. And I am sad to say I do not wish to provide further spoilage at this time. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, we're getting close, though, to telling a little bit more about that, so... I think that's really neat, but I don't want to even give kind of a hint as to the theme of it exactly at this point, because I really would love it if I didn't and others didn't, spoil this season's hardcore, and people were able to figure it out when when they get there. Okay. Yeah, Dark Wolf 2002 has sort of an idea that what about a character clone option? We can already copy characters, say, from one world to Lamania, so in theory, you could do the same thing from world to world. I don't know that. I mean, as you even mentioned in your comment, there's a whole bunch of concerns about it. Like, really, you're just gonna load up a character on all your best raid gear and then just copy it 8 times or whatever. But I think in practice, especially if it were priced enough that that was pretty discouraged, there might be a reason where someone would want to copy a character. But I don't think you would want to be like, how do you acquire raid gear? Well, you acquire it once and then you just copy it over and over. So I think there would be a whole bunch of technical and balance and other concerns that would be a part of that process. But I suppose in theory you're correct that you could create such a system if you had the interest in tracking all those bits down and doing the work to do it. I would not expect to see us do that anytime soon. Maybe you could do it in a way that would essentially strip the gear or something like that. And that might be palatable in a way that could make such an idea possible. But in theory, you're right. I mean, you could be like, yeah, just copy instead of that does a thing. You would potentially run into longer term issues, I think, again from a technical side, where you'd have item ID conflicts. You occasionally see that in the existing game, maybe with some players who used to run on the old Codemasters service who run into transfer issues due to old item ID conflicts and things like that. So it seems like from a technical side there'd be a whole bunch of issues there that you would have to deal with as well. All boss mobs are now 3 mobs in a trench coat. No. Nope. DDO point gifting is something that we would like to do at some point in the future, but I have nothing really I can announce today about our ability to do that. The main issue it causes is a bunch of fraud concerns. There are other concerns as well, but particularly when you have an open market for DDO points that you create by doing something like that, you get a lot of bad actors that suddenly show up, and it can be enough of a problem as to pose challenges to any effort to do something like that. But perhaps we could create a system in the future where there was some way to directly gift to an account, or some way where it wouldn't be codes floating around or something like that. Work is continuing on the VIP update that Severlin teased a little bit earlier this year, but we don't have anything further to say about a release date or anything like that. As soon as, it'll be previewed on Lamania, I would assume. Well, actually, I don't know. There might be some particular challenges about previewing that on Lamania. But I'm sure we'll do something along those lines and have more information for you as we get closer to it. But work's just ongoing at the moment. Oh, thank you, Voodoo. Very nice. I'm going through chat. Well, I haven't gotten to the raid yet. I'm running behind on chat today. I suppose I could just turn auto attack on, but here we go. Alright. Yeah, exactly. Dark Wolf gives an excellent example of why someone perhaps might want to do that. They have their main on one server, but a raiding guild on a different world, and they'd love to be able to pay or something like that to be able to just bring that character over as is. I mean, again, though, you're talking about all sorts of raid progress and things like that in a way that, I don't know, could be a problem. I'll take that Demon Heart Emerald. That seems alright. I guess I would, the concept of, quote, fixing the auction house economy, it sounds like a pretty lengthy topic. In your question, you're specifically talking about the Platt auction house, and I think when given a choice between earning Platt and earning Astral Shards, there's going to be a natural inclination to go for the Astral Shards. So I think to some extent, that is the player economy working. However, as someone who can't use the Astral Shard auction house, although I am not a big auction house user in general, I will admit, I have not found it to be useless. And I think particularly for new players, the Platt auction house still has a pretty valuable purpose that, at least when I'm seeing it, has some availability of things. Now, you're right, you're not getting the best gear because the best gear is going to be sold by other players for shards. And I'm not sure how you would manage to sort through making it more desirable to not use shards, So, I don't know. But I hear what you're saying. It would be nice to get, the occasional raid gear in that. But I think, to some extent, that is just sort of the free market doing its thing. Yeah, this will be the third preview, Dre, I believe, for Lamania. A special offer tab in the website's market page that has been empty since the website revamp. Any news on how close we are to getting the new player bundle back or other special offers? I know that some special offers are being worked on, and when the time comes, we'll have more to say about them. But I do know that we are working on a few things. I don't know about bringing back the old starter pack, if that's what you're asking about, the old kind of player bundle. I don't think there's any intention to bring that back. I don't have a time frame for Mystic Dragon. I don't have a time frame for the arrival of the new VIP perks. As soon as we know more, we'll pass it along. Can we get the Coin Lord's cut from both auction houses diminished some? Well, maybe. But I don't know. Lowering that cut would bloat things a lot. I don't know. They're kind of there for a reason. I think people who manage in-game economies smarter than me would need to give it further consideration than kind of an off-the-cuff statement on a live stream. I'm going to say probably not, though. Let me double check. Johnny asks, which one comes first, the new mini DLC HCS 8 or new raid? What do you mean by mini DLC? I'm not sure what you mean by mini DLC there. Update 59 is next, so that would be Droam. That's next. After that will be Hardcore 8, and then after that will be other things. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess I'm just not sure what you're referencing. I'm not aware of mini DLC. The expansion will be later this year, so it'll be after update 59 here. It will be after update 59 here, but in terms of timing, it'll be 59, Hardcore Season 8, and then the next expansion. We do have a new Epic Past Life coming. You know, like you've seen some hints and such about that. Get over here, dummy. Alright, there you go. Alright. Yeah, I would expect the Epic Past Life to arrive with the expansion, and that'll be after Update 59 here. So you'll see it in the near future on the Mania and elsewhere, but we got 59 to get done first, so we're doing that. But yes, that's where I would expect to see the Epic Past Life. And I don't think there's any real big surprise there. Also, some of the things that we're seeing on this most recent preview, like the new mount and the new hireling. Yeah, I could, I think. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I'd have to double check to see what we've already said about the Epic Past Life. I know that during the anniversary, I thought it was Tolero had mentioned something about what it would be. Not useful on this character, but I'll take it. Give me a quick second. I'll just have to go back and find some bits that I missed. There we go. Yeah, we'll have a lot more on the contents of the expansion bundles. I can't really hint. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to hint at this time about what might be in it. But we are putting together, the nice full list that you can expect. Per usual, I would say. Okay, which ones did I miss? This way a bit. There we go. Ah, nice. Nice to see folks from Australia there. Instance change crash going to be fixed. I know that we have engineers looking into specific instance change crashes. Some of that may be due to the audio crashing issue that it will have a fix in update 59. Some of that may be a culprit of things hanging up due to poor performance that might be addressed with update 59. But some of it may be related to other causes as well. And so I would be hesitant to give a definitive statement as to the future of that particular issue. Other than to say that I would expect to see us see movement toward instance crashes, resolving any instance crashes that remain post-update 59. I would expect to see that in the relatively, future updates beyond, most likely. I'd think. Man, I got a lot of traffic noise outside my house today. I got people in their fancy cars doing fancy car stuff. It's a nice kind of early summer day. All nice and sunny and warm-ish. It was actually really hot last Friday, like obnoxiously, ridiculously hot. But now it's nice and cool. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Oh, they play Enduro on my street fairly regularly, as a matter of fact. Especially on Saturdays, you know, weekends, you'll see the bikes and you'll see the fancy, souped up cars. Further information about stat numbers like strength, dexterity. Sorry, where did that go? Strength, dexterity, constitution, and those instead of just feats and enhancements and items and effects. You would like to know where each point comes from. Potentially. You're right that we've been making progress in providing a lot more detail in recent updates, so I wouldn't want to rule out anything like that. But that sounds like a lot of work. You know, of course, every time that stuff gets calculated, that means it has to be sort of stored and made available and things like that, too. So sometimes you might have game performance or data bloat or other concerns that would get in the way. But in theory, you know, we definitely have seen a lot more information get into UI tooltips and things in the past, year or so. So potentially, maybe we could. Oops. Down this way. Oh, I haven't been raged. I suppose I could rage myself, huh? That'll make it go a little easier. Faster. It would be neat to be able to calculate all that information in a meaningful way. I'd love to see us have a way to I'm having trouble with that one. I don't want to attack in the water. I think I'm going to have to bring them onto land. I may have to follow up with someone afterwards, be like, hey, got a little problem here. All right. On the auction house, back to that, on Argonesson, this person sees collectibles being up for about 50 Platt. Collectibles are a major source of wealth building, so is there any way we could get in-game recourse? What do you mean, in-game recourse developed to help new players get onboarded into the culture of DDO's player economy? In-game recourse developed to help new players get onboarded into things like the Platt auction house. So that would be really kind of tool tipping and onboarding to be like, hey, this is a thing that exists and you could use it. You could, I suppose, do something similar to like a the way we have that one quest to kind of introduce you to the DDO store in Korthos Island. You could, I suppose, do some kind of what might be called a vector quest. A quest to take you to a place and do a thing. We already have some of that in place, although it's more location-based, with the little kind of checkbox system that is in the upper right corner of the UI when you are in a public area. Call it the Go system or whatever. And that was really an old Menace of the Underdark era bit of development that, let's be real, has somewhat fallen by the wayside and could use a refresh at some point. But you could use a system like that to introduce someone to something like the Platt auction house. And that could be something you could do. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Like, have some kind of thing. You wouldn't... Well, I mean, the auction house isn't available till you get out of court, though, so you would presumably need to do that tutorializing in the harbor, or some such place like that. But you could. Makes sense. I will check this cloak in a second. Actually, that's the High Inquisitive's cloak. Is that right? High Inquisitive? No. Saltmarsh, Smuggler's Cloak. That's what that is. And for the armor, I believe I'm using... Yeah, the 17th Anniversary Dark Armor. Which I think works pretty well with the Saltmarsh Smuggler's Cloak. Not 100% exact, but they're close enough for my eyes. Alright, there we go. I would need to look into the reasoning for why the Hearts of Wood are made bound to character before I can really comment on the feasibility of making it bound to account. But, yeah, in theory, that seems like something that could be possible someday. Because other DDO store items are bound to account. That's cool. I like that item. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, just that. Yeah, that's true. I suppose I could use some Dinosaur Bone boots as well. I don't know what the state of my Dinosaur Bone itemization is here, although clearly not much since I'm still using my Morning Lord's Great Axe. But I might just kind of keep using that. Maybe accessories are the way to go for this character and put on the boots or something like that. I could see that being a pretty good use of my time on this server for this character. Perhaps. Well, in general, the why you would do something bound to character is because, I mean, there can be a plethora of reasons why you would have something bound to character rather than bound to account. Often, for raid items, it's to encourage people to have to get the items on every character. That way you don't just get it once and then never run the content again. Sometimes it's due to perhaps an exploit or other unintended behavior that could take place if an item could be swapped back and forth, although typically that's less of a concern. Binding or unbinding is generally where that falls into place more frequently. You could have it so one reason might be that, like for example, if you are getting something for free for an anniversary item or something like that, you wouldn't want to have a item that was delivered to every character upon login, for example, be bound to account, because then you could just make, 1,000 characters log in and get 1,000 of the item, and then shove it all into an account bank and never need that item ever again. So I mean, there's a variety of reasons why you do it, and sometimes it's because you don't maybe even know what the impact's going to be when you first debut an item, and so you want to be in a more restrictive rather than less restrictive state to be able to say, you don't want to have to correct a bigger issue that you could have solved by not making it bound to account. So, but then again, there are times where you would want it to be bound to account so that you could trade it more easily back and forth to your characters. So it really just kind of comes down to a bunch of different factors. And I'm sure there are items that could be made bound to account that are currently bound to character. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist or anything like that, but that would be the reasoning, one of those or other reasons why that would have been the case to begin with, why it was made that account, or that put into that state. That's true. It gets even further delineated in that we do have bound to character on equip, or bound to character on acquire, and such as well. So, really, it just kind of comes down to the particulars of the item and what makes sense for that item. Yeah, I like this. I like the look of this character a lot. That's actually part of the reason I tend to play this character on the live stream, perhaps more often than some others. I just think this character looks cool, but it's just the Morning Lord's great axe. So. But it all comes together. No, so honestly, on the 3D printer, I did a bunch of work to get it set up, and then I tried to figure out how to... I have a Resin 3D printer for printing minis and stuff, and I got it down to about, I think it was 0.05. It's a very small little layers, so it's relatively smooth. And I printed the one thing, but honestly, 3D printers are pretty smelly, and the fumes can honestly be somewhat toxic. And so I didn't really want to do it in my closed up house in the winter. So I just sort of was like, all right, I'll deal with you in the spring. And then I've been so busy this spring. I've been so busy over the past 6-8 weeks that I haven't had time to bring it out. But I was looking at it just recently because of some work I'm doing around the house. And so I will be getting it out soon, and I know which 3D mini I'm going to print. There's like a free 3D mini of a guy with some cats in a canoe sort of a D&D character with some cats in a canoe, and that's my kind. 3D print, and so I'm going to give it a shot and see how that goes. And I would expect that to happen in the coming weeks, but we'll see. That 3D printing resin is, I got the not stinky kind, and it's still pretty stinky. So, and you want to wear a face mask while you do it. I even have 2 little charcoal kind of smell de-smellers inside of the 3D printer, and it's not like overwhelming or anything, but it's there. And I just didn't want to do it in a closed-up place. You don't like the fire effect? Well, that's fine, Strim Tom. You can just be wrong! No, I'm kidding. Actually, that's Strim Lord, not Strim Tom. Alright. You can be wrong, Strim Lord. And you're not wrong. It's fine. I like the fire effect, though. Yeah, I would expect to do that. So 3D printing is a skill. Especially if you're like me and you've seen, say, since Black Friday, which is when I got this one. They had some deal where it was less than $200, and they even included some of the goop that you have to put into it. Plastic resin. I even got like I say, the less VOC ecological version of it, of the resin. I paid a little more for the slightly more environmental version. And really the stuff still just stinks, and it's still a petroleum-based plastic, essentially. I will say, though, that, I have been really into the resin printer in general, though. Like, that when I did do a test print, and I made this little guy here. It was a little, just kind of good luck kitty. And, it turned out pretty good. I learned a few things from doing it, but I had to learn a lot about how you do 3D printing, and it's a skill. Not as much of a skill as maybe like knitting or some other craft like that, but it's definitely something you're gonna not do your best work for the first 5 to 10 times you do it. And those first couple of prints are gonna be like, I had like 4 or 5 failed prints in a row. And you just learn all sorts of things about how to position things on your 3D printer kind of layout printer file. And things like thinness of stuff and how to peel things off of the FEP sheet. And other stuff, too. There's a whole bunch of things to learn. And this is just printing other people's stuff. I have no idea how I would actually go about printing. Alright, you guys attack the Copru. This is called You Take Care of My Problem. Go, 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 Frogo. Oh, there we are. Nice. I would love... Do you know how cool that would be if you could do, like, DDO minis or something like that? That would be the best. That would be the best. I did ask once. I was like, well, like the sort of 3D files that, or 3D things that get made, is that something that could get turned into like a 3D printer file? And the answer is not really. Not really. I don't actually know how people make 3D printing files on their own. Like, how do you actually design a mini in 3D? In like Box or whatever you're using. You want to see me start doing some Reaper ones. It's true, I tend to wimp out for the purposes of being able to get more easily distracted and not have it be a problem. It's true, I do in fact do that. I tend to run things on easy mode here on the live stream. That's not a bad idea. I should do that. And I'd like to do a little more rating. Actually, I would like to do that. It's always a challenge to get people together who can raid suddenly at 4 p.m. Eastern, like workday in the United States, but I'm sure we could, and it might be fun to do a little bit of that. Or even maybe just do it on my own someday, record some video and such of it, and then play it back on Fridays at 4. It doesn't really have to be live, per se. There's no real reason it needs to be. So that could be an option as well. You know, there was a... I guess I can't announce the winner yet or anything. But, you know, as you know, people voted for which of the dungeons of our PAX East panel would get made into a dungeon. And the voting period for that has ended. And so, in the near future, like we were saying during the panel discussion itself, we want to create some content around the making of this free dungeon. And I think almost certainly it's going to be Nobob who's doing the work. And I think what we're intending to do, there have been discussions this week about what form it should take. And some of those questions are still a little outstanding. But in general, we're going to have some video of Nobob working on the dungeon, making the dungeon. You can kind of see it come together in bits and pieces. I think the intention, though, is to not just be a live stream. You know, there's a question of like, okay, well, it's live stream making it. And then we started breaking it down. It was like, well, what do we actually want people to see and understand? And does it need to be like a long format live stream? Couldn't we maybe do a live stream but also do some pre-recorded? And couldn't the pre-recorded be both potentially longer and shorter in nature? You know, YouTube Shorts, heck, even TikTok, you know, Facebook Reels, that kind of thing. Not that we want to get trendy necessarily with it, but it's more about being able to present a lot of the kind of nuggets of information people would like to see in a shorter way. Like when we did the PAX East presentation, we did that 1.5 minute long, 90-second fly-through of Kobold's new ringleader. And that was pretty well received. And we could do things like that in, say, a YouTube short format or something like that with the making of the dungeon. And then it also gives you, of course, a little more control over the staging of the information you're putting out there, which sometimes is isn't really a concern on this case, but, you know, could be a concern depending on the content you were making. So I think we're going to do, like, the joy of deving with Bob Hess. But I think we are going to also do some kind of like short form video and things like that as well. Mostly just because it seems like it'll be fun to do it that way. And to give us a little more opportunity to present the information in a bunch of different ways. So I would say that Nomad Dog, the kind of 3D printer I'm using is a little, well, it's an Anycubic Mono 4 Photon 4K Dex, something like that. I don't know. They get into word jumbles, but it's a lower end one. But it's a resin printer, which is specifically meant for smaller prints. And because it's meant for smaller prints, you don't have the kind of day-long or 2-day-long printing processes that you would have with, say, a filament-style printer, where maybe you're printing off cosplay items or something like that. So in general, you don't really have that kind of same concern. I think it'll still take a couple hours. Might even take 6 or 8, depending on the thing you're printing, how big it is, and how fine, how many layers you're doing, and all that other kind of stuff. But you're generally not looking at 2-day-long prints for minis. And the theoretical reason you want to use a resin printer rather than a filament printer is that minis can get much finer detail and much thinner layers in general. But you're also looking at things with a much smaller size. A discussion about how XP is assigned to the various aspects of the quest and how those decisions change over the development process, if it changes at all, would be cool. Yeah, I can give you just a little Cliff Notes version, which is that in general, the base XP of a piece of content is based on the length of time designated for the quest. So there's sort of a base value if it's short, medium, long, very long. Do we have anything longer than very long? But there's a base value assigned to that. And then on top of that base value is a certain amount of assignment based on other factors. Total CR of the dungeon and things like that. But there is also just the ability, I believe, of the team to tweak those numbers to try to be relatively consistent within a cloud based on content. Of course, what you never know is which quests people very quickly find ways to get through and which ones they don't. Sometimes you can predict it, sometimes it's harder. So that's, you do end up not always being able to be consistent. But then the other main way to do it is you've got the base XP of the quest, but then you have all the optionals as well. And so sometimes in the case of a quest that is actually longer than average, but falls within a category which, assigns X amount of XP and you want to put more into it, you can do it through the use of objectives pretty easily. So there is a wide range of possibility in terms of how XP is assigned. But at its core, there's really a base value, a modified base value, and that base value comes from the length of the quest and is modified by various factors. And yeah, well, that's the intention of this dungeon. I don't think it's not going to be every minute of the creation of the dungeon or something like that. But the intention is to have some live streams and have some videos and show the way that this dungeon comes together. And part of the reason we're able to do this is that, this isn't the big fight against Vecna or something that would have a lot of IP considerations, for example. Because this is the free quest that we put together publicly through PAX East, it gives us an opportunity to play around with it and just kind of have some fun with it in a way that's pretty cool. So. I am not a developer per se. I am the community manager for Dungeons and Dragons Online, so that means I deal with things like Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, the forums, getting all your feedback to the team, getting the team's feedback to you. I do things like release notes and coordination of all sorts of different bits. But I have not actually heard of any plans, Zexion, the shorter name, to do any work on Restless Isles. I know that interest in us doing that work, crops up periodically, including fairly recently. But I'm not actually aware of us having any intention to do work on Restless Isles. I will have to get back to you on what the cost of printing a mini is. I think it depends on the mini. Depends on how much of the, plastic goop you use. But in general, it's in the range of the file system I use, the one that came with the printer, gives you an estimated cost before you print. How much material in particular are you using here? And it was for that kitty there, I think, in the range of $3.50, something like that. So it's not cheap. I wouldn't say it's necessarily even cheaper than just going out and buying a mini you like. But it gives you the ability to really kind of select and find things online and play with size, if that's a concern, and do your own thing if you're good enough. But I think in general, the cost of commercial minis is not really far off from the cost of printing. A little bit higher, maybe, but not that much. ETA on Reaper trees changing. Well, I don't have an ETA to give you. That is something that we've talked about in the past, and I'm sure we'll talk about again in the future. We do have some thoughts about what we might be able to do with Reaper trees. We've been discussing it really for a couple of years now, but most recently as well. And if we're in a position to talk more about the changes that we might have in the future to Reaper, we will do that. So I don't want to say never or anything on that, but it's too early to really talk about that today. All right, well, I think that is, about $354 was what I was seeing. All right, I think, touch the monolith. Let me finish the quest here. All right, I'm going to wrap it up then here. A whole bunch of loot. That's a pretty good place to call it. All right, thanks so much for watching Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDOstream. I hope you enjoy the Guild Renown weekend. Hope you enjoy Update 59 here in the near future. I'll be back next week with more Fridays at 4, twitch.tv/DDOstream. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you again soon.